Otherwise, Elijah. Elijah. To lead the prayer before we proceed, before we continue with history lesson.
Okay po,
Otherwise,
good evening po.
good evening, Elijah. Okay, you can
Good evening, ma'am.
proceed. You can proceed.
Okay po, let's pray po. Lord God, salamat po sa araw na ito. Salamat po sa blessings na patuloy niyo pong pinagkakaloob sa amin. Naway gabay niyo po kami sa aming review sa gabing ito at gabay niyo rin po ang magtuturo sa amin. Naway ito po ay maitanim sa aming isipan at magamit po namin at sa ulo hanggang sa aming pong board exam. Maraming salamat po sa pumapala. Patuloy niyo po pinagkakaloob sa amin. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Elijah. So, Jen, can you refresh me with last night's presentation?
Nag-end ka
So,
sa may so-called Cocktown, ma'am?
Cocktown.
Opo, in 20s.
All right. Okay, so I'll get there. Okay. Let's see. So this one, right? This was the last slide.
Yes po.
Okay. All right. So we are here now. Although it's a continuation anyway of industrial cities or manufacturing cities in 1769 to 1970. So industrial cities were established around the principles of mass production. Factories and assembly lines allowed for goods to be produced quickly and cheaply, leading to economic growth, but also creating demand for large centralized workforces. The promise of employment drew millions from the countryside into cities. So this urban migration transformed small towns into sprawling metropolises, often faster than infrastructure could keep up. So these are the characteristics that you can see in bullet form. So indiscriminate exploitation of natural resources, where industrial cities thrive on coal, oil, minerals, and water, extracting them with little regard for environmental impact. So this phase marked a shift from sustainable local economies to resource-intensive industry. Then it resulted in pervasive air and water pollution, more on man-made disaster. So smoke from factories, okay, chemical discharges and waste runoff polluted air and rivers. So cities like London and Pittsburgh became notorious for smog and toxic water, leading to health crisis and environmental degradation. Then there was population explosion after World War II that lowered value of labor hour and stiffened competition for work. So here, the post-war baby boom and global rebuilding led to overpopulation in industrial cities. So with too many workers competing for limited jobs, wages stagnated and living conditions worsened for many. And then cities became unregulated jumbles of activities. So they needed transport planning at at that time. And so the growth of factories, warehouses, and worker housing happened with little oversight. So roads, railways, and public transit lagged behind, resulting in congestion and inefficiency, highlighting the need for urban and transport planning. Then, impoverishment of workers as a result of the skilling and scientific management took place. And so, by the way, scientific management here would normally refer to Taylorism, as in Taylorism, okay? So scientific management or Taylorism brought work into simple, repetitive tasks to increase efficiency, but it also reduced worker autonomy and skill. So the skilling led to job dissatisfaction and kept wages low, contributing to urban poverty despite industrial prosperity. Okay, you can see the next slide here that London was originally a Rome. So again, you're seeing the word castra, the Roman camp or castra, and then replanned by Inigo Jones in 1630. So the earliest urban form of London began as a Roman military camp or castra. Okay, like many cities across Europe, the Romans established camps using grid-based layouts. So yeah, and also defensive walls. So which later formed the foundations for urban expansion. In the 17th century, English architect Inigo Jones introduced classical planning principles to London. One notable project was Covent Garden Square. Okay. This was inspired by Italian Renaissance piazzas. So Jones' design created an open, orderly public square surrounded by elegant buildings, a stark contrast to the chaotic medieval street pattern elsewhere in the city. The Covent Gardens transformation comprise of while originally designed to house the elite and feature cultural landmarks like the Royal Opera House, Covent Garden evolved to serve more practical needs. The square became famous as a bustling market for vegetables, fruits, and flowers. So it was a testament to how public spaces adapt to urban life and local economies. So what are the key urban planning lessons here? Number one, early planning was heavily influenced by military needs and order. Second, later interventions like those by Inigo Jones introduced formal geometry, symmetry, and multi-use public spaces that have become models for urban design worldwide. Then even grand urban designs can be transformed by the daily activities and needs of the community, illustrating the dynamic relationship between planned spaces and actual urban life. So this next slide here is saying London today among the 5 most powerful world cities, along with New York, Washington, D.C., Tokyo, and Paris. So, okay. Sir Christopher Wren in 1600s, okay, Wren produced or after, okay, after the Great Fire of London in 1666, Wren produced one of the first comprehensive plans or master plans for rebuilding London. Although not fully implemented, his ideas influenced the reconstruction of the city, particularly the layout and design of streets and churches. So his crowning achievement, um, St. Paul's Cathedral, remains a landmark of city planning and English Baroque architecture. That's Sir Christopher Wren. James Craig in 1767, he designed the new town of Edinburgh. Um, and so this was an early example of planned urban expansion using agreed and actual design. His approach influenced the linear and orderly growth of cities in the 18th and 19th centuries, contrasting with the organic medieval street patterns of older urban cores. So Robert Owen in 1799, he pioneered, or Owen was a pioneer of social reform and utopian planning. His Village of Unity and Mutual Cooperation at New Lanark, Scotland became a model for integrating welfare, housing, and community facilities for industrial workers. This reflected the first moves toward planned communities addressing social needs rather than just economic or defensive ones. So, John Green in 1766, Green's London and Westminster improved. Okay, this one is moment. It was a remarkable plan that he called London and Westminster improved. He was the one. It was John Green who prepared for this plan. It was a visionary plan proposing street widening and then river embankments, new bridges, and rationalized road networks. So although only partially realized, although only partially realized, his work set a precedent for 19th century urban reforms and modernization efforts. Then James Buckingham in 1849, he proposed a utopian community called Victoria. So let me clean a little bit. It's called Victoria. Buckingham's Victoria was a proposed utopian community aiming for an ideal population size of 10,000. And then the plan incorporated early concepts of population control, so to avoid overcrowding and ensure resources for all. Then also some early concepts on segregation of land uses, separating residential, commercial, and industrial areas for order and efficiency. Then the green belts around settlements. It's open, undeveloped land encircling settlements to control urban sprawl and provide recreation and environmental benefits. So these historical figures and their plans collectively shape modern urban planning principles such as spatial organization, integration of social needs, and there's also land use zoning and the incorporation of green spaces. So London's status as a global city today reflects centuries of accumulated urban planning knowledge and reform, positioning it alongside other influential metropolises like New York, Washington, D.C., Tokyo, and Paris. Now, it's great to reach this point, the evolution of modern urban planning models. So we will start with the conversation that this should be conservation. So conservation. Apologies for the typo error. So Frederick, okay, so Frederick Law Olmsted Sr., 1822 to 1903. He was recognized as the founder of American landscape architecture and the leading figure behind the creation of public parks in the US. So please remember that. Okay. His philosophy considered parks not as a mere decorative spaces, but as essential urban infrastructure with significant social, economic, and cultural benefits. So the conservation and parks movement united several influential figures, including Marsh, Muir, Pinchot, and President Roosevelt, who advocated for a comprehensive system of public parks and the conservation of natural landscapes. So Olmsted's 1870 book, okay, Public Parks and the Enlargement of Towns became a foundational text emphasizing that parks were integral to city life and growth. Olmsted's vision went beyond recreation. So he believed that parks should serve these diverse social functions, which should be mixed use. And then he also believed that um, to reduce class conflict, to reduce class conflict by providing a common space. Then also, he also believed that it's important that he believed that parks should strengthen families and promote moral values. He also believed that parks address urban problems. So by offering healthy environments and opportunities for social reform. His designs were heavily influenced by Beaux Arts principles, known for their grandeur, monumental scale, and harmonious layouts. So aiming for both beauty and social utility in urban planning. So that's Frederick Law Olmsted Sr. Continue about Frederick Law Olmsted Sr. He was best known he was famous for the design of Central Park in New York. Okay. Working alongside Calvert Vaux. So their Greenwald plan established a model for urban parks worldwide, emphasizing naturalistic landscapes within the city grid to provide accessible recreation and respite for urban residents. So Olmsted's other landmark projects include Riverside, Illinois, then Buffalo, New York Park System, Druid Hills in Georgia. So here, this was it was a planned residential suburb in Atlanta, featuring winding roads, generous park space, and a harmonious blend with the natural environment. So Olmsted's work set the standards for modern landscape architecture and urban park planning, prioritizing health, civic engagement, and environmental quality within growing cities. So, just a moment. Okay. In the UK, or during the 19th century, as the UK industrialized rapidly, cities faced major public health crisis, uh, pollution, inadequate waste disposal, overcrowding, and poor housing conditions made industrial cities breeding grounds for disease. So water sources became contaminated, air was thick with smoke, and tenement housing led to the spread of epidemics. This situation led to the rise of the sanitarian profession. So, meaning that the early, the rise of the sanitarian profession were early public health advocates. They were the early public health advocates who pushed for cleaner streets, improved waste management, better housing, and air quality. So influential figures like Edwin, okay, like Edwin Chadwick. Is it Chadwick? So here, okay. Edwin Chadwick, and Dr. Richardson. Okay, Dr. Richardson. Also, they began applying scientific inquiry, meaning what would become epidemiology to understand and solve urban health problems. So, a key intellectual debate at the time, known as the filth versus germ. So can you see that? Filth versus germ. This was a debate, and it split public health efforts into two camps. First, those who focus on removing visible filth and improving city infrastructure, okay, in urban planning and housing context. And another one, those who concentrated on controlling invisible disease agents. They this refer to germs through medical and scientific means. So ultimately, this led to the modern integration of public health, urban planning, housing policy, and social services as essential interconnected elements of city management. Okay, please remember this, the field versus germ debate in the time of Benjamin Clark Marsh and John Snow. Okay, here. And so if you encounter a question like, what are the parent professions of urban planning, and this will lead you, if there are some options that you can see public health, then you can choose public health. However, if big, but you can also if you can see also sanitary engineering, yeah, but mostly during my time, the best answer, because ABCD, that the options ABCD there, among the options you need to choose the best answer. And so during my time I answered sanitary engineering. I think that's the one. But if you encounter also public health, then okay. So what should be the best answer? And the underlying principle was found here in the field versus germ debate. Okay. So now modern planning here, so we need to understand in the context of modern planning, what are the key points here main goals, and you can see alleviate the deterioration of living conditions, address acute public health crisis associated with overcrowding and lack of municipal and sanitary services, and etc. So I think it's easy to understand this one. And then, these are the main goals. And then under England's Public Health Act of 1875, counties were divided into urban and rural sanitary districts supervised by the central government. So, well, England's Public Health Act of 1875, there are two key points there. First, it divided countries into urban and rural sanitary districts. Second, these districts were supervised by the central government to ensure uniform application of public health standards. Then, there was the UK Local Government Act of 1888. It established that land use must be regulated, laying the groundwork for modern town modern town planning. Also, it empowered local authorities where boroughs, countries, and towns were given authority to create housing bylaws, regulate minimum street widths, require external lavatories, and ensure access to back alleys for waste disposal, including management of wastewater. Then also, here, it also under UK Local Government Act of 1888, it also provided for provisions on controlled population densities. It set popular density limits such as maximum of 50 houses or about 250 people per acre. Okay, so the main driver of modern planning was public health, that prompted by the dire conditions in rapidly growing cities. So these reforms laid the foundation for current urban planning practices such as zoning, building regulations, sanitation, and land use controls. So you can see there the houses and the 50 people. Okay, you can see also Jon Snow. It's not really a good photo. Malabo yung photo. However, Jon Snow is renowned for his work in tracing the source of a cholera outbreak, showing the vital link between urban planning and epidemiology. Okay, so here, number 4. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. Then 5. It also included First National Conference on Planning and Congestion in 1909. So, what transpired during this time? First, it brought together experts and advocates to address urban crowding and its effects, and also it helped establish planning as a recognized profession and social concern. Social concern. Here also in number 6 in the US, Public Health Association called for city planning in 1872. What transpired here, it recognized that health crises in cities were closely linked to unplanned growth and inadequate infrastructure. Also, it pushed for city planning to prevent disease and improve living conditions. So ito na yan pala, yung the legitimate parents of modern planning, public health administration, where it pioneered interventions in sanitation and disease control. Then there's sanitary engineering. During this time, wala ito. And so it led me to answering this one, which I think so, who knows? siguro correct ako because nandyan naman, di ba? So, sanitary engineering because it developed technical solutions for water, sewage, and waste, and many more. So public housing, social work, because there are legitimate parents, one of the legitimate parents of modern planning because it responded to slum conditions, crowding, and social needs. And the Baroque, so probably this one, Baroque urban design, it provided early design principles for beautiful organized cities. So planning is as old as urban formation, but the initial interest was social welfare and human living conditions rather than the built environment. So it was during this era also. The urban planning is, it said, urban planning is as old as cities themselves. Initially, the goal was to support social welfare and improve living conditions, and not just to shape physical space. So early urban planning was driven by urgent social and health issues. It drew from a mix of public health, engineering, social work, and even aesthetic traditions. So the profession matured through landmark legislation, then organized conferences, and the recognition that healthy, humane cities require both design and regulation. So um, this is becoming interesting because sinong planner ang hindi nakakakilala kay Ebenezer Howard? So I hope all the architects in this group, you are familiar with Sir Ebenezer Howard, 1850 to 1928. So he wrote Tomorrow in 1898. Lumabas din sa exam noon ito during my time, and then year after year. Because after 1898, 99, 2000, 1900. So after 4 years, it was followed by Garden Cities of Tomorrow. Okay, Tomorrow and then Garden Cities of Tomorrow. So he wrote 2 books about tomorrow. He yeah, what were his concerns and motivations? He was alarmed by the poor living conditions in industrial cities. So he sought to transform cities' physical form to improve health, well-being, and livability. So his main proposals were to disperse population in industries outside congested urban centers. Second, he proposed he proposed to create new sanitary living conditions through planned development, and he proposed to design cities to function well under capitalism, making them both workable and livable. So he was inspired by the London's World's Fair of 1851, which showcased urban industrial progress. He introduced the concept of the social city, uh, which he envisioned polycentric settlements or clusters. He called them social cities. And so central city to for Sir Ebenezer Howard means 58,000 people, and then surrounded by grid cities, each with 30,000 people. So all separated by green belts, okay, and farmland. So social city concept also, according to Howard, means efficient transportation, uh, rail and roads, so that will connect cities, industries, and for food supplying rural areas. So were the planning principles of Howard. He emphasized the need for planning land use and integrating green space to control growth rather than allowing unchecked urban sprawl. So Howard's Garden City idea is foundational in urban planning, promoting balanced development, healthy environments, and the integration of green space. His model influenced the development of modern suburbs, satellite towns, and even aspects of today's sustainable and smart city movements. So still, Sir Ebenezer Howard is a relevant planner, even up to this time. So, okay. Ebenezer Howard is best known also for proposing the Garden City concepts. Garden City concept as a solution to the problems associated with both crowded industrial cities and underdeveloped rural areas during the late 19th and early 20th centuries. His approach was shaped by the social, environmental, and economic challenges of his time. So the three magnets paradigm here, okay? So that's the center of Howard's vision, the three magnets diagram, which illustrated the relative advantages and disadvantages of living in the town. So here, okay, you can see this, the town. Town here in this diagram means the city. You see, town city, okay? So don't be confused because country, the second magnet, to mean countryside. Okay? Country or countryside. Countryside. So in this context or in this three magnet, town is the city. And then countryside. So meaning like urban and then this like urban and then this is the rural area. And then the third magnet, is known as the combination of town and country. So town country is the third magnet. So this was his proposed garden city. And each magnet represented a different way of life. The town, which we call city here, the town magnet, he described the advantages as there's economic opportunity, employment, access to urban services and amenities, and the disadvantages of the town or city is overcrowding, poor living conditions, pollution, lack of green space, social problems, etc. Now, he also described the advantages and disadvantages of the country magnet, which he meant countryside. So the advantages being clean environment, natural beauty, fresh air, tranquility. Okay, so you can imagine he was trying to describe the rural area, he called it the country or the countryside. Then disadvantages being lack of job opportunities, fewer services and amenities, social isolation. In the town country, which he called it the garden city. Okay. He also cited advantages being clean environment. He did not mention about advantages and disadvantages because he theorized the town country being the garden city, and he called it and people called it the Howard solution because he combined the best features of both the city and the countryside. So the goal of the garden city model was to provide economic and social opportunities in an environment that remains healthy, green, and spacious. So he theorized that the result should be balanced communities integrating housing, industry, and agriculture within a well-planned, self-contained settlement surrounded by green belts. So, how the garden city works? Well, garden cities were to be laid out in concentric rings. Can you see this one? Okay. It garden cities were to be laid out in concentric rings with designated zones for residences, industry, agriculture, parks, and public buildings. So each garden city, okay, so he called it a green belt. So the green belt here, he meant each garden city would be encircled by a permanent belt of agriculture. So the permanent belt of agricultural land, preventing urban sprawl and ensuring access to nature. So he also described um, self-contained communities within the context of Garden City, that such that the city would be self-sufficient, providing local jobs, services, and amenities to minimize the need for long commutes. Then social reform as a component or as a characteristic of Garden City. The Garden City, according to Howard, is a movement that was not just about physical planning. It aimed to create a more equitable, healthy, and harmonious society by improving living standards, encouraging cooperative ownership, and promoting civic engagement. So Howard's ideas influenced the creation of new towns and satellite cities worldwide. So his principles are still relevant in contemporary planning, particularly in efforts to design sustainable communities and managing urban sprawl and ensuring equitable access to green space. So the three magnets here um, is both a critique of the failings of the city and countryside. So he combined that. So his visionary proposal um, is for a new form to evolve, new form of settlement to evolve that incorporates the best qualities of both the town and the country magnets. Okay. So I hope you understood now the three magnets paradigm of Ebenezer Howards. So the Garden City, and we need to memorize this actually. The Garden City. So I give you like I give you sige 2 to 3 minutes, okay? Please memorize. You cannot go back. Keep going back to here. And probably I'll call some of you here. Let's see if you can memorize in 2 to 3 minutes. Is one of the like a practice. Okay, no judgment here if you don't memorize. So linger for a while. I'll just get water. Jen, can you still hear me?
Ma'am, nawala po kanina.
Nawala?
Opo.
Nawala ako. I just got water. Did you not hear?
Opo, narinig namin Mama Carla kasi namin nagsasalita ka kaya nagmo-movie po yung
Ah,
slides.
I'm just trying to count the remaining slides for tonight.
Opo.
Okay, so ano kaya? So, ano ko muna? Iyan. Saan na yan? Sorry. Iba yan. Sorry. Iyan ako. Stop ko muna. So that I can see you. Saan na tayo? Naririnig pa rin ako. Nandyan?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes po.
Ay, okay. So I'll go to the grid, to the gallery view. Okay. So we are 27 here. Okay. Sige, volunteer. Okay, I would like to ask you the key features and planning principles of Garden City. So Ebenezer Howard's Garden City model, first articulated in the late 19th century, was conceived as a radical response to the social, environmental, and urban challenges of the industrial era. So the Garden City is designed to blend the benefits of urban and rural living, offering a high quality of life, economic opportunity, and environmental sustainability. So I'd like to ask you, okay, you've seen all those core physical and spatial features of a garden city as theorized as theorized by Ebenezer Howard. Can you tell me the plant population size? Okay, can you please unmute? So each garden city is
30,000.
okay.
30,000.
So it's intended for 30,000 residents. And these 30,000 residents, it's large. This is large enough. Large Garden City intended for 30,000 residents, large enough to support a range of services and industries, but small enough to avoid overcrowding slum conditions. So the city itself covers about how many acres?
1,000 acres.
1,000.
Okay. So 1,000 acres supporting a relatively high residential density around how many houses per acre?
15.
15. Or in per hectare is
37.
okay for efficient use of land and infrastructure. A defining element of the model, the city is encircled by a permanent agricultural green belt of roughly what? How many acres?
5,000.
5,000.
5,000. Okay, so this green belt not only supplies fresh food and recreation, but also acts as a barrier to unchecked urban sprawl. The city is carefully zoned into residential, industrial, and commercial operated by green belts to prevent conflicts. So what are these types of conflicts, or what are these types of problems between incompatible uses? Can you name some?
Pollution.
Pollution, yeah, air pollution. But what other types of pollution? Aside from that. So what are the types of pollution that you know?
Water pollution.
Water pollution.
What else?
Air pollution.
Air.
And then
Noise.
noise. Okay. So the city is carefully zoned or because of rapid efficient rail connections link the garden city to the central city, or what we call the mother city, supporting both economic integration and accessibility while reducing reliance on private vehicles. So the city grows outward in what? What type of form is that?
Concentric.
Concentric rings.
Concentric.
Correct. So the city grows outward in concentric rings, with each new garden city developed as a separate, self-contained settlement. So over time, this leads to a cluster or blank. What's the other name of cluster of towns? No. Think about like a galaxy or something.
Multi-centered po.
Hindi.
Cells.
Constellation, like a constellation of towns. Okay, so each set within its own green surroundings, rather than one vast, undifferentiated metropolises or metropolis. So now we go to objective and social vision that of Garden City. So can you name those objectives first? When you secure regular employment, so there's a need to, but how do we secure regular employment? By balancing residential, industrial, and commercial activities. So Garden City is aimed to provide steady work opportunities, especially for skilled professionals at higher purchasing power. So what do you call that objective? That when you need to clear zoning and green buffers to minimize the friction between housing, industry, and commerce. So how do you do that? How do you clear zoning and green buffers?
Land zoning?
Yeah, so these are land use conflicts. So do you reduce land use conflicts, right? Correct? You reduce land use conflicts means you clear zoning and green buffers or clear zoning and green buffers as a mode or as a strategy to reduce land use conflicts, isn't it? So to minimize also the friction between housing, industry, and commerce. And then what else? Besides those objectives, what else do you know? Ano pa yung
Healthier environments.
Yes, what else?
Convenience and comfort.
Convenience and comfort. So the Garden City now is not a plan. Everyone says it's a planning model, but it's more on. It's also a comprehensive vision for a more humane and sustainable form of urbanization. So now you know you have become more familiar with Ebenezer Howard. And so do you know who the disciples and the collaborators of Ebenezer Howard? Do you know them? Tinatanong din yan sa board, sino yung mga disciples niya. Meaning, those who follow him and those who were inspired because of him. Sino sila? Barry Parker. And then who else?
Ledger?
No.
Osborne po.
Osborne. So they were Howard was supported by influential architects and planners such as Barry Parker and Frederick Osborne, who were also instrumental in translating his theoretical ideas into real projects. So can you tell me the two of the most famous garden cities? Dalawa yon. There were two garden cities.
Letchworth.
Letchworth, what's the other one?
Wellwyn.
Wellwyn.
Well-being.
So the Garden City movement reshaped 20th century urban planning worldwide. And so it laid the groundwork for suburban development, new towns and many planned communities across Europe, the US, and even outside or even beyond these two continents or two nations. So, I mean, Europe and the US and beyond. And so, what were the key planning tools in this context? Ano yung mga ginamit dito? Ano yung mga key concepts there? So I'll name one, like green belts. Ano pa yung mga keywords na kailangan tandaan ninyo so that when you encounter them in your 2026 EPLE, you will always remember and hindi kayo mawawala. And Ebenezer Howard will always be in your mind.
Garden cities.
Yes, what else?
Landmarks.
Okay.
It's combining the best aspects of both city living and country living.
Correct. Okay. And then you forget something. How do you connect it to the mother city or ano?
Rapid transit.
Yes. So it's integrated transport also, right? Like through rail, di ba? Rail transport. So the movement influenced not just physical design but also planning, policy, governance, and the integration of social reform. Also, please don't forget social reform into city building. So the disciples of Ebenezer Howard took his model from theory to practice, demonstrating its viability and adaptability. Now, the movement's ideas were exported across Europe and inspired decades of urban innovation, making the Garden City one of the most enduring legacies in planning history. So I'd like to end there. I'll continue tomorrow with ano na yan? What's the next topic there? Garden City, and then the two. Okay. Okay. Tomorrow I will discuss about the City Beautiful movement and the rest of the movements. So thank you, and you have a great evening. 2026 ENP.
Thank you.
So
Thank you po.
thank you
Thank you
too.
po.